Welcome back. It's episode 20 of the Brand to Fan Show. Did you know that most podcasts don't make it past 10 episodes, and very few podcasts in the history of podcasts actually get to 20 episodes? And here we are, just a few months in, 4 months into the Brand to Fan Show. We've been delivering this weekly. It hasn't always been easy, but we've made it. Here, 20 episodes. So just a little round of applause for you, the listener, for sticking with us through 20 episodes, for listening to guests like Jay Bear, Ann Handley, Tamsin Webster, Ron Tite, Scott Stratton, Brian Fanzo. The list goes on and on. I am so grateful to all of the guests who have joined us on this journey of exploring what fandom is, what fandom means to customers, what fandom means to employees, what fandom means to your business, and how to grow your business through fandom. It's kind of fun to have your own group of supporters or fans, and you listeners are certainly one of those. And today I've invited 3 of my favorite listeners who are also on the producer credits to join me for part of this episode. To kick this off, we wanted to talk as a group about what the show has meant to us, what we've learned through the show, and how we've unpacked fandom kind of behind the scenes, and doing that for you. So in this show, I promised to bring you some of my favorite people, whether they're experts or influencers or authors. Today, I'm bringing you 3 of my favorite people. They are my ride or die team, affectionately known as my mom squad. It is Carrie Hellbusch, Kimberly Voorhis, and Ashley Ruiz from the Brand to Fan Show production team. Welcome, ladies.
Hey, happy to be here.
Awesome. Okay, so if we are listening to this and not watching it on YouTube, then we need to let people know who is who. So I'm going to ask you real quick just to say your name and how many kids you have, and what's your favorite episode of the Brand Fan Show. Ashley.
My name is Ashley Ruiz. I have 3 children. They are small and mighty. And my favorite episode was Neen James. I thought her excitement was just like infectious, let alone just what she had to say. But I was like, I want to meet her. I want to be her friend.
Yeah, it's worthwhile. Thank you.
You're welcome.
How about Kimberly? How many kids and favorite episode?
Yes, I'm Kimberly Voorhis. I have 5 kids. We eat a lot of food, and I had a few different favorites, but I think Jake McKee and talking about community really stood out to me. It just felt like something I could resonate with about, I could instantly think about multiple brands where I've been part of the community and the community experience. So I found myself going back to that episode a few different times.
Amazing. Thank you. And certainly not least, Carrie Hellbusch.
Yes. Hi, I'm Carrie Hellbusch. I have 4 kids. We live in the beautiful state of Colorado, and we also eat a lot of food. And we are a performing arts family, and we just acquired a trombone. So stuff is about to get spicy around here.
All right. This is the last time I would do a podcast episode from your house.
Exactly.
What was your favorite episode, Carrie?
My favorite episode was Brian Fanzo. I had the great luck to meet Brian Fanzo in real life, and I was so excited that his positive energy and his passion for his AI art and for mental health came through in the podcast as well. And that I adore him just in general. And I was just excited that who he is authentically in real life came through in that episode.
Yeah, it sure did. I think that's been one of my favorite parts of all of the recordings is I've been fortunate enough to know each one of our guests personally in some way. So whether it was like working with them for several years, like Jay Bear, or getting to be mentored by people like Tamsin Webster and Neen James, as you said, people who are colleagues and counterparts and people who I aspire to be like. Those people have all shown up on the show, and I'm so grateful because I think, as you said, Carrie, when they come on the show, what I love about them is we're having authentic and curious and intimate, but not revealing conversations about their experiences, both as a fan and then as a leader in their industry, about how using fandom and customer experience and actually engineering that is part of that. So whether you're building an actual like external community, whether you're cultivating internal fandom with your employees like Joe Mole, or whether you are, taking kind of on your journey. I think like Laura Gassner-Otting with the Wonder How episode, kind of taking fandom as part of your journey and who you are as a person as part of that certainly has stood out to me. So I think you have been here since the very beginning, all three of you. And I'm so grateful for your impact and your help on the show, because it's definitely not a one woman thing. Oh my gosh, can you imagine if this was a one woman thing?
No.
But I know that you have probably seen more than anybody kind of the transformations from behind the scenes of where Brand of Fans started and kind of this arc and how it's developed and how it's talked about on the show has developed, the episodes have developed. As we worked through this and as Brand to Fan has really kind of created its own identity, what's something that is a huge takeaway for you that maybe you didn't realize was part of this, or like when did that click for you, what the whole Brand to Fan approach was about? Kimberly, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, I can jump in. Well, I think listening to each episode, I started to ask myself afterwards, how can I relate to this? How can I relate to this? So Dana Snyder talked about cultivating personal relationships within the brand experience and as fans. And I thought about that and just what brands do I engage with where I feel like I have these personal touch points, whether it's through audio or video or responses or DMs. And so I think just hearing the stories come out each week really made me think like this is relevant through all aspects of my life on the daily. And even today, I threw on my husband's LA Dodger sweatshirt, and it's probably laughable to some people because I just am really not the biggest sports fan. But let's talk about how this relates to me, right? I know that if I go to the Dodger Stadium, I'm going to get a Dodger dog no matter what. And that's a part of the fan experience that I've experienced for over 30 years. And so this idea of fandom each week that we've talked about really just transcends this. It's just so relatable on all levels. It's down to the mom who doesn't really care that much about sports, but is showing up at the Dodger Stadium and can still have an incredible time because I know exactly what to expect. I'm going to get a really good Dodger dog. And that's what matters to me. And that's the touch point for me. And so I think just listening to each of these episodes has made me realize that fandom and cultivating the affinity that we always talk about is such a personal thing, and we all experience it in different ways. So as I've listened to the different guests, I've just been able to pull out nuggets each week of, oh, I can see that in my life. It's just very relatable.
Yeah. And as you're helping other people build their businesses, their personal brands, and operationalizing what that looks like, I know personally that you have brought stories as we built the keynote. You brought examples, and for this part of it, like you said, you don't have to be a sports fan to understand fandom. You don't have to be a Taylor Swift ticket holder or in some music club. Like, fandom is really a natural part of kind of what we're all drawn towards. We're both drawn towards things that represent who we are in the world, and we're drawn towards work, like being invited and extending invitations to be a part of something. And I think that you have seen that in the world. So like I've never been to a Dodgers game. I know that when we get to eventually go, you're going to show me the things that don't happen on the field that are part of where you like your traditions, your experience, and those touch points then add value to what my experience would have been.
Absolutely.
Without that.
Absolutely.
Cool.
I'm in the same camp. So I also am not a super sports fan, but just like in the Scott Stratton episode, when he talks about you can't just bombard people with sales pitches all day, you've got to tell a story. I fall in love with the stories around sports, right? So like I live in Denver Nuggets are in the finals, but I'm wearing the Miami Heat gear today and all week. And my husband is terrified for me to leave the house in it. But I love Jimmy Butler. I love Jimmy Butler's story. I love the person he is on Instagram. I love how he encourages other players to expand their brands into food and follow their passions. He owns a coffee brand and an athletic wear brand, and I believe an ice cream brand. And his Instagram is beautiful, and you would not know he's a basketball player if he wasn't, in the finals at the moment. And his love of music I resonate with. So just like Scott Stratton said in that episode, my big takeaway was like, you've got to tell the stories because people fall in love with the stories.
Yeah, the storytelling part is such a huge piece of that, right? It's what actually connects. So as we've been building kind of this brand of fan map or model of what that is, like that story piece kind of becomes the invitation that is extended, like being so clear on who you are and what you stand for, and then being willing to put that out into the world in a way that other people can resonate is literally that invitation from one to another to say, like, come with, right? This is worth following and worth being part of. And then all those little things, right? Like you were saying, the music, the personal branding, the different interests that outside of basketball for someone like Jimmy Butler, those all little like touch points and connections really make a difference in building trust. And so that authenticity has to be there to build trust. Ashley, what do you got?
I'd have to agree, but mine is more technical. So the way that we've watched the whole show evolve. So going into it, I could see like somebody says, oh, I'm not a marketer. I don't deal with fandom on a daily basis. So why does this interest me? And it kind of just comes full circle from what everybody was talking about, is that it is the stories, because you're involved in it somehow. You just don't know how you're involved in it until you listen to these stories that these people are telling. And it's more about, the human connection and how we can connect to those other people, rather than here's how I make money, here's how I get dollars. And I think that if you're the average person, or even an entrepreneur, or somebody who's a CEO who might have been doing this for a really long time, you can kind of lose what that feels like and get narrowed into, we've got to do this, we've got to reach our audience. And you don't think about how it affects them. It's just whether or not you reach them. And so like going into this, I thought, well, I don't know how I'm going to resonate with some of these guests. And every single time I am pleasantly surprised, because they're all different in their own right. And they all have these amazing stories to share, or this amazing energy, and I think part of that has to do with us talking about those same two questions you ask every single time, is your favorite piece of fanware. You've got to get it all in there. And then they have this great story that comes along with it. Or even the TLDL. I'm sorry, but that's my favorite part. Every single time. Y'all know that everybody's a busy person around this, in this camp here. Everybody has a minimal amount of time and it's precious. So the fact that you can boil it all down real fast, that it's like, okay, I got to go back and listen to this later while I'm doing the dishes, but I need to get to this part real quick. The fact that that is incorporated into it and you can wrap it up within like 3 minutes. Just saying.
Thank you.
Just saying.
I'm now thinking like, man, why do I leave that for the end? Why don't we just cut that piece out and put it in the beginning like everybody else, right? Like you shouldn't put it at the end. We should put it up front. So then you can listen to it, listen to the episode, listen to it back. And that's how the magic is made, right? I wouldn't be able to, this show for me has taken on an arc and production wise change because of not just because of the tools that we're using and things, but like just the input and like, well, what if we tried this thing? What should I ask this person? What other story kind of goes with that? And as we're building out other assets and pieces of kind of the brand of fan approach and what that looks like for our personal clients, what that looks like from stage and what that looks like certainly in the podcast and what we're presenting, that is. But I think Ashley, for me, one of my biggest kind of arcs has also been like, oh, this is for marketers. This is for business leaders. Well, at the same time, I'm building like another startup. And so the entrepreneurial, like, what do I need as a marketer in that heart has come through. And then what do I need as an entrepreneur in the same episode, I think has also come through and probably completely unintentionally. But it has been one of my favorite parts. And it's, and again, having my friends / guests who are just brilliant people from all walks of life. I mean, I remember when I got on with Laura Gassner-Otting and the first 20 minutes of our conversation, which weren't recorded, were just kind of like coaching therapy. And she was like, where are you at? Like, and I was like, oh, it's a bad week and da, da, da. And she starts, coaching me through, like she does, she's brilliant. And I was like, wait, we're going to run out of time. Like, if you're going to do this, like, let's make it an episode, because if I need it, then somebody else likely needs to hear that as well. And so that has been kind of a piece that I didn't intend for that side of my brain to come out. But I'm sure glad that I did, because I think knowing a ton of founders and startup entrepreneurs, and especially female founders, like we're looking for that in a lot of different places. So, this isn't just a marketing podcast. It's not just a business podcast. It's a people podcast. And I'm totally okay with that.
Absolutely. I remember so many of our conversations behind the scenes too, as this has evolved, talking about all of a sudden these stories that we remember from growing up. And we looked at like the brand experience and becoming a fan, not even realizing it, that certain brands have been part of our lives and we've been kind of we've fallen in love with over the years, and we've built a loyalty towards those brands, organizations, companies without even knowing. And so that's been one of my favorite parts, to just think about, oh yeah, growing up we always went with Heinz ketchup, we're not going to go with any other brand. And then kind of looking back at why, or you guys will remember that I talked about experiences of shopping for Spanx with my mom, and how that became a part of our routine for every special event. It was part of now this story of my life. So it got bigger than just, I'm not just a fan, but these are core memories of my life. Any special event, we stopped at the store to get Spanx the night before. It was just something we did. And so I've loved kind of looking in reverse, like taking all of this knowledge from all the guests and then going, oh wow, this has been a part of my life for my entire existence.
In the same vein, we've also uncovered how we look towards the future with brands, right? Because remember, we all had that conversation where we're like, oh yeah, we all have Stanleys, but what do we know about the brand? Does it align with our values? Does it tell us good stories? Are we all just trying to get that drop color because somebody in Instagram stories told us they were dropping one at Target this week, right? And so for me, a big takeaway has been examining the brands that I support and seeing if they're doing that work and telling those stories and holding values that I hold as well.
Yeah, that's certainly that part between like, okay, I have some sort of connection to this brand. Now I'm building a relationship. And then there's like, but to activate that trust factor, people are going to be watching what you do. People are going to be watching who you hire, what you show up at, how you show up in the good times and the bad. And we've certainly seen a lot of brands who have succeeded at that. And then a ton of brands who misstep. And, it's not uncommon for a brand to get called out today on social media for a misstep. But, there's also, for some reason, it catches people by surprise, right? Like, oh, that brand wasn't really who I thought it was, really, because they've been showing up like this for decades, years, since, like, look at who's here, who's part of the team, who's, who they're really trying to activate around and who their audiences are. Once you start to look really at a company to see if they're worth trusting, that certainly is part of it. I think the same goes for like influencers and personal brands and people who are doing this. That certainly is something for me as I'm thinking about how people fall in and out of love with brands. And I think going forward for me, exploring that, what happens in the fallout side, what happens when you lose trust, what happens when you're not, like tattoos are mostly forever in most cases. They're very expensive to undo. But fandom certainly is not forever. And it can take one micro act, and it's just a total slip up. And that happens regularly. And it's sometimes people grow apart from something that they were a fan of. I mean, 8th grade Lauren is not still putting posters of Nick Carter on her wall and like, roguely buying Backstreet Boys tickets for her birthday. But that's a totally different story. I'm not, but at the same time, like I kind of grew away from that. At the same time, now that they're back on the scene, I'm kind of like, oh, maybe I should.
You're going to buy the detergent. You're going to buy the detergent, girl, because they're singing on the commercial. They won you back. There it is.
As someone who has seen them in concert recently, highly recommend. Worth the time.
Oh, well, maybe for an upcoming birthday, then we can.
There we go.
We can do that, right? So, like, I think the thing that I missed exploring so far, which is fine. I mean, we're only 20 episodes in, is that fallout. And I really want to know from people who have had bad experiences or fallen out in a way that was disastrous to them or to the brand. I think like that is like kind of the cover that we don't want to pull off, and I'm ready to pull that one off. So I'm excited to do that. What else do you want to see from the Brand of Fan show? This is something we're going to ask the listeners to contribute as well, but just curious, like based on where we've gone from here, like what do you think is next? What other things do we need to uncover here?
Well, I'm going to piggyback on what you said. Like, I want to see the fallout also, but I want to see what happened after that. So like, I want to know what the customer felt and how it impacted them and whatever other aspects in their life it impacted them. But I want to hear the stories of where the company tried to win them back, because I know that's happening. And I want to know, like, how far will they go? How far are they going to go to get that loyalty back? And can you ever really win it all the way back is probably the more important question.
Yeah, it's really good. I've got a couple ideas right now in my head from like, I remember the earliest, like the McDonald's coffee, like debacles of like, must have been the 90s, like coffee's too hot, spilled on my lap. Like, okay, like what happened? I was not studying it in the same way as I would today. So thanks for that. Already starting to percolate some ideas. Coffee pun. Kimberly, how about you?
Yeah, well, we did talk a little bit about what happens when a brand missteps in Jake's episode. He talked about Southwest and the fact of like what it felt like to be part of a community. But I think definitely I'm excited to explore that. But what I loved there was he mentioned that when a brand missteps or you have an experience that is just not what you expect from them, but you're part of their community, there's this moment where you go, but we know them, we know who they are. And so you offer them more grace. He even used that word in his episode, just a little bit more grace than maybe you normally would. And you stay part of that community because they've built that trust with you. So I would say, I would just love to hear how you continue to build trust on the daily with the video tools that we have nowadays, whether it be TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, like what that looks like showing up to build intentional trust with your community on the daily, so that when things do happen, because they will inevitably happen, every brand is going to go through some rough patches or especially in today's world where things are just traveling so fast and decisions are being made so fast. And ultimately there's humans behind all of this. So mistakes are going to happen, but I would just love to hear more about what it looks like establishing trust on the daily using these amazing tools that we have to get in front of people and to build these human connections, which I think we've done, but I'm excited to go a little bit deeper.
Awesome. Carrie, I know you have something to say.
Well, I was trying to decide between two. One is I'd really love to know where people are having success making connections outside of the volatility of social media. I don't think today in marketing, it's all 100% in social media, and it's not being, even when it is 100% in, it's not being done in the best, most connective way, right? It's like requiring 2 posts a week and not allowing people to put up billboards, that kind of thing, right? And forgetting about your local area marketing. And then the other one I'd love to see us explore is this introduction. And I know it's a word that's really hot right now, but I really want to know how people are creating that authenticity and that storytelling piece using AI. Because I think it's really super easy to push the button and let the machine do the work. But we've seen in the past that when you standardize and formalize your plan and your brand, it loses that authenticity piece. And so I want to know how brands and people and founders and customers and consumers can trust in this new culture of AI.
Yeah, I was spent last week, one day last week down in Sacramento with Jay Bear, watching him give his new talk called Time to Win. And he actually talked about how the companies that power chatbots on a website have built in an actual like delay on the response. So there's like a 3-second delay timer on the response because the output can be so fast that we actually as humans don't trust the output, because it would fire so fast. So just like we've been using like a ChatGPT, and we've been using Cast Magic and other AI tools to help us with this pod, those outputs, boom, so quickly. And you actually have to build in a delay if it's going back to a human, because it can just be generated so fast. So that is a fascinating look at what's coming next and coming down the pipe. And everybody's got to be aware of that, because this is not NFTs. This is not crypto, right? Like, I don't think next year, I don't think we're going to be like, oh, that was a fun blip. And I really do think that this technology is here to stay. So that's a really interesting look at that as well. Okay, ladies, we wanted to make this a shorter than usual episode. And although we can all stay in chat as long as we would like, it's also fair to the listeners to wrap this with one question that I ask everybody on the Brand Fan Show. And that is, what is your favorite piece of fanware that's either in your closet now or something you used to have?
Don't make me go first. I got to think about it.
I'll go, because then
Ashley.
I'm gonna say a sad one, and everybody can go wah, and then you can move on. How's that? I am wearing my favorite piece of fanwear. This is a Rams veterans hat. And my dad got it. He is not a Rams fan, but he bought it because he wanted a baseball cap when he was visiting me, and he came for Veterans Day, and they were doing a celebration at my kid's school. He's since passed away, and before he left, he had left it. He's like, I don't cheer for the Rams. You hang on to this, kid. So he left it with me. So I keep it with me. I have it in my closet. I wear it sometimes, but it was my papa's. And so that is my favorite piece of fanwear. And so I say, go Rams, love the hat. There you go.
Yeah. And I know that you don't have to talk about it, but you do have other personal connections to the Rams and what they've done for you and your family. So
yes, they are amazing. And I love all of them. And so if I have to cheer for anyone, I will be cheering for the Rams.
Wonderful. That's a good story. See, the stories, right, is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Kimberly, do you have one?
I do. So mine was, very memorable like that. I was going to say just anything that my pop used to wear, which was my grandpa. So I remember he had a Raiders jacket, and when he passed away, I just remember like that was something in the closet that I wanted. There's something he wore with pride. It had nothing to do with my connection to that specific team, other than it was like what it represented being worn by somebody that I love, and the constantness of it. I mean, it was just something that I saw for years and years and years. And so it was highly valued as like a legacy for his life.
Isn't that incredible that a piece of clothing can be so tied to someone's identity that that's literally how you remember them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Okay.
Yeah. Beat that, Carrie. Come on.
Okay. So I'm going to pivot. I'm going to pull a Tamsin and pivot.
Okay.
Mine is not sports ball related. My favorite fanwear in my closet are my Dermot Kennedy pieces from his concerts at Red Rocks. He had special fanwear created just for the concert that incorporates the two Red Rocks. And it was the first concert I took one of my sons to. And if any of you have been to a concert at Red Rocks, you'll know that it is a cathedral, ethereal-like experience to be out surrounded in nature and have to hike into the venue and hike out and just hear the music under the stars echoing in the mountains. And it's a lot. So that's my fanwear, or my Dermot Kennedy piece.
I guess you get a pass if it's not something that we can list on Fanwagon yet. That's fine. I understand. Now, I will like to note that I am the only person on the call that is not wearing recognizable fan gear, and that is because I am not ready to tell the listeners about my own piece of fanwear. So hang tight. You'll have to wait for a different episode for that. Thank you all so much for joining me to talk about your favorite moments on Brand Fan Show. This show literally not done without the contributions from each one of you, whether it's building the episode, making sure the episode gets published, or promoting it for the world to see. These three ladies help me do that and more. And someday, when our schedules all align for 30 minutes like this, you might be hearing us on another podcast someday. If you would like to hear that, make sure to give us a shout out in social media at Teague FC and let us know if you want to hear from the Mom Squad on things that aren't related to fandom. Not at all.
Might be, but might
Maybe.
be.
Maybe. I get
Possibly.
dragged to sports ball stuff with you all the time.
So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.